Today on Top Gear Rearview, Jeff does something. Blah, blah, blah.
Hello and welcome to Top Gear Rearview. I'm Jeff, that's Brady over there. Tonight we're looking back at Series 2, Episode 5 of the new Top Gear.
This episode aired on the 8th of June, 2003, and the star in the reasonably priced weakest link is Anne Robinson.
And in an episode devoted to blokishness, as Jeremy says, we're looking at a few variants of the Porsche 911. We meet a gentleman who built a car in his kitchen for reasons. We look at the Triumph TR6 as a manly convertible with James May. We do have a challenge again. This one doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's comparing the speed of a rally team, replacing essentially the entire drivetrain minus the engine of a rally car versus the Pirelli girls getting ready for a night out on the town. And finally, rounding out the segments is the new Renault Clio V6.
Yeah, that's a cool car. I can't wait to talk about that one.
God, I love that car.
All right, so we talk about the Porsche 911 Turbo, but they talk about it they start talking about it and talking about Oversteer and Understeer, yeah?
Yes.
You got a little...
With nice little toy cars.
Toy cars and toy
road
and toy trees.
Toy tree.
Hammond is explaining, and essentially they say that
Understeer works like this. You drive down the road, you turn the wheel, but the car goes straight on, crashes into a tree, and you die. Oversteer works like this. You drive down the same bit of road, turn the wheel, but the back of the car comes around like this, and you go off the road, crash into a tree, and you die. Now, oversteer is best because you don't see the tree that kills you.
And we talked about this in the Lotus Esprit, or the Lotus Elise episode, Jeff, didn't we?
I believe we did, yeah. And I prefer Understeer.
Yeah, you said Understeer was better because you see the tree you're going to run into, but Hammond says Oversteer is better because you don't see the tree that's going to kill you. Now,
see, I think they can be the same because Understeer, you at least know when to brace and you hope you don't die. And Hammond's just assuming death is part of the equation.
You're always going to die in that case. Okay,
every time.
If there's a chance of not dying, then Understeer is better, I presume.
Yes, agreed.
You know when to close your eyes so you don't get the Takata airbag fragments in your eyes.
Topical.
Yeah, but then Clarkson talks about the Porsche 911 Turbo because it's not a front engine car and it's not a mid engine car, but it's a rear engine car and it hangs out over the back end, and presumably that meant that you didn't really know if it was going to oversteer usually or if it was going to understeer usually. He said front wheel drive cars usually understeer and rear wheel drives usually oversteer. Is that something that you've heard of a 911 Turbo or just a 911 in general, is that you don't know? I've always heard that it's like super well balanced and doesn't really over or understeer at all.
I think I've heard the same. It's of the newer ones at least because they have traction control. I know the older ones are a little more squirrely, but yeah, mostly it's balanced.
Yeah, okay. So I think you could say that same, you don't know what it's going to do of every car depending on how you're actually going into a corner and how you're approaching it and all that sort of stuff. Generally, if you're going a little too fast, your tires will not be able to grip as much as you want them to, so you'll understeer.
Yeah. Now, this review is definitely one of the earlier indications of Clarkson's long-held hatred of not the happiest feelings about the 911 line. And let's
call it disdain.
I'll give you that. Give you that. I checked it out because he was like, it's so hard to tell them apart. For the 996 generation, not including the crazy editions like the Millennium Edition, there were 16 different variants you could get.
16 different variants of the 996.
Yeah, basically from your base model, your standard Carrera two-wheel drive. You got Targa, you got convertibles of everything, you got turbo, you got your GT models. There were so many. And a lot are kind of repetitive, but 16 different ones.
That's a lot.
It is, really.
And I'm sure they're all segmented price every $10,000 from like 90 to like 200.
Higher than that, because you could do like GT3 RS and GT2 category. Oof, those get to some money. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean, some of those like your GT2, that's a racing car. And they made a road variant of it. Same with GT3s, but yeah, it's a confusing line if you're just getting into the thing, and then it's even more confusing when I say 996 and everybody's like, no, it's a 911, and the 996 is the model code, the model designation for this generation, and it's just a lot of numbers.
Yeah, they really should have chosen something other than a 3-digit 9 number for the model code.
Yeah,
like
they
Alpha,
didn't, and
Beta.
No.
This is the 911 Turbo 996. What? Yeah, it is confusing for someone who's not really into it.
Well, there's no rhyme or reason. That's the most annoying part. Is like the late 80s to early 90s are all the 964, and then they go to the 993, and then the 996, and then the 997, and then the 991. It's very weird.
It's not very German, I have to say.
No, it is not. There's a logic to it, I'm sure. I don't know what it is.
I'm not sure about that. Jeremy seemed to like this car driving around, though. He said that they've actually...
To be honest, they've cracked it. The modern-day turbo, like this one, has four-wheel drive and perhaps the most sorted chassis of any road car.
They actually got it right when it came to, stabilizing the chassis and the power that the turbo flat six can.
Yeah, 420 horsepower. I mean, this is the regular turbo, not the X50 or the S. Those have slightly bigger turbos, but 420 horsepower, so many horsepower.
Yeah, I mean, the 911 is not a big car, so 420 is a lot for this sort of thing. It is four-wheel drive, which helps it out a lot, I'm sure.
Yes.
Jeremy says that he likes it better than a Ferrari 355. Oh, okay.
Duh.
Is that duh. Is that a competitor of this car?
No.
Yeah, 355 is not a very good-looking car.
It's a wedge.
It's a wedge. It's a Fiero. I look at all those cars, and all I see is a Fiero, which is bad for them. Why are you charging me more than $3 for this car? But that's pretty much all I said about this car. They didn't really talk about it too much. They did, though, Jeff, put it around the track.
They did. The stonking wet.
It was actually raining on it. They do comment the 4 seconds, but I've thought that if it was actually visibly raining, that I would call it very wet. What do you think?
I would very agree. Wet? I'm going to give it very wet. It was pouring out there.
If it's actually raining, I think it's very wet. The water is standing and running.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll do very wet. All right, so it did a 131 in the very wet, which is way fast.
Yeah.
That is
this is the right car to have in the very wet because you got the four-wheel drive, you got big tires. Like, this thing's gonna grip. It's probably punching above its weight class with that 5-second edition.
85 seconds is after the 6 second deduction for very wet.
Okay.
Is very fast.
Yeah.
It is 88,000 pounds, so it's not cheap.
Nope.
But it's very fast, so we'll see where it ends up. Jeff, what is your desirability rating for the Porsche 911 Turbo? Just the 911 Turbo.
This generation, normal generations were like a 10. This is a 7 because I don't like the headlights, but I still like the car.
3 points for bad headlights. You're sounding like me now.
Yeah, it's the first water-cooled generation, and I got nerdery to talk about in a minute, but we'll get to that.
Okay. I don't like the, what do you call them, the egg drop headlights?
Yeah, the droopy eggs, yeah.
I don't mind them on this. I don't like them on the Boxer, but I think the Boxer is proportioned a little differently. It's a little flatter, a little less rounded over the front end.
Sure.
I think this looks a lot better. I love the way Porsches look. I wish I could have one. I'm going to give it an 8. So I'm going to go one better than you.
All right.
But that is a very high score from us. It is a very fast lap time. That's, where is the Zonda? That is 1.7 seconds slower than the Zonda.
Wow.
No, sorry, 2.7 seconds.
Okay, I was going to say it was 123 range, so yeah, all right.
No, sorry, 1.7.
1.7, yeah.
Yeah, 1.7 seconds. Yeah, it did a 123. This, after the 6 seconds, is a 125.
That's fast.
So this actually puts it into 3rd place on our list.
Wow, I'm not that surprised. I mean, this is on my short list of
That means the only cars ahead of it, Jeff, are the Westfield XCR2. No, the Westfield.
No, the Zonda's too expensive, yeah.
Yeah, the Westfield ZRX2, so XTR2, sorry, and one is the Radical SR3. So very soon.
Oh my God, this is going to be first.
This is going to be our best car on the Top Gear Power Rankings.
This is not one that I regret putting up there.
No, I mean, if we make it just a wet lap,
See where it puts it.
third place still.
Hey, fair enough.
All right, so we'll give it at 6 seconds.
All right.
But yeah, so that gave it a 113.7.
It's just so bloody fast. Like, that's roaring.
So yeah, just behind the 1 and 2, which are the kit cars, which will be off soon for not being road legal, and a solid 5 points ahead of number 4, which is the Noble MR12 GTO.
Okay.
So yeah,
now
great car.
Yeah. They did have the C4S, the Carrera 4S, which is the S version of the Carrera 4, which is the four-wheel drive version of the Carrera. And that is the no turbo 3.6 liter. So this is later. They started that generation with a 3.4 liter. But yeah, he was talking about how it looks really good. They have a similar aero package to the turbo model, but 100 horsepower less. Still a fast car, 0 to 60 in 5.1 and 174,000 mile an hour top speed.
174,000 miles an hour.
That's so fast. 174 miles an hour top speed. At 25 grand left at 63,000 pounds.
So I have to say, I guess the Porsche C4 is 60,000 pounds.
Yeah, 3,000 less.
So 3,000 pounds more, and you get all of the stuff that they put on a turbo except for the turbo. Presumably, he made it sound like it's literally a turbo without a turbo. It's got all of the suspension.
Pretty much.
All of the aero, all of everything.
Yeah.
It's 100 less horsepower. That's a lot. But we talked about it last episode. In terms of options, you could take a Carrera 4.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, for $3,000, 3,000 pounds more, you can get the full turbo aero package and suspension. It's like, that is a super duper cheap option. Why would you ever not also get the C4S if you're going to buy a C4?
I'm not sure what the suspension came on the C4, but
I
definitely get the aero. And
I have it written down, a turbo in all aspects without a turbo, like the turbocharger. So I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, everything but the turbo. So it's got 320 horsepower instead of 420 horsepower.
Yeah. So he stopped briefly to get out of the car, say something, get back in at like an 18th century house. The first thing I noticed as he was pulling up, I was like, wow, that's a lot of oil stains on the ground. Did you notice that?
I did not, no.
Oh my God. It looked like somebody was just like just dolloping out like pancakes of oil. It was, yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but there was a lot of oil lost in that particular junction.
I mean, it very well could have been one of their houses.
I know, right? It's just a leaky James May project
Just
car.
Hammond's
Pushed out of frame.
Hammond's Land Rover. Get it out of here. We got to shoot.
Bunch of motorcycles. All right, now I have a hardcore nerdery thing. You ready?
Let's do it. Yes.
Okay. So the 996 generation, first generation of the 911 that got water cooling. Everything before then was air cooled.
Yep.
And much maligned because of that, because when they built those engines, they used what's called an intermediate shaft bearing, IMS bearing, in the middle of the crankshaft, and that had a high potential for failure. And if it fails, it takes out an engine, and you're talking 5 figures pretty quickly. So
in the water cooled version.
Yes, in the all of them. Yeah, so this is a new failure. The 993 generation before this did not have this. So, that is one of the reasons their prices, the 996 gen prices, are pretty low comparatively. Because I mean, you can get like a 98 to 2002 like Carrera 4, probably in the 20 or less range, used with reasonable mileage. Because it's kind of a ticking time bomb. Now, there are a couple fixes for it, but the ones that didn't have this issue were the turbo, the GT2 and the GT3. And I just was determined to look into why more today, and it's because they actually use the crankcase from the or the air-cooled variant, the 993 crankcase, with separately installed water jackets to add water cooling to an otherwise air-cooled engine.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I was like, that's different, because they're 3.6 liters. That's the flat 6 at this point. So the displacement is the same, but the standard ones, the Carrera, basically the all non-turbo or GT models, got the crankcase was cast as one piece with your water jacket in the the crankcase, whereas these were added on. And there's obviously internal differences that mean that IMS bearing, if it's still used on the 993, is a little stouter. But that was just super nerdery. I told my wife, and she was like nodding off while I was talking about it.
Well, it's interesting that they would have used a different, I guess, block and crankcase configuration with the turbos and the GT3 and the GT2, because those are much higher powered engines. It must just be a stouter build anyway to handle the extra 100 horsepower that they're putting into it.
I mean, the GT3 is naturally aspirated, but the GT2 is essentially the same turbocharged engine.
Yeah, and so it's probably just a bigger bearing to handle it's a different bearing to handle the power.
Yeah, but that was a nice little nerdery. Like, now I understand why those. Obviously the GTs are going to pull a premium. From everything I've heard, the continuing thing is if you're buying a 996 generation, the turbo is if you can find a turbo with reasonable miles in the 20, 30, probably 30, 40 range, it's a bargain, because those things have a ton of power, and as we've seen, they are fast.
Yeah, and I guess besides this intermediate shaft bearing, it's a reliable car. And they do talk about that in this episode, that a Porsche will last forever.
Yeah.
I guess unless it's got the bearing problem.
Exactly, yeah. I think aside from that, I think the newer ones are actually more reliable, because you look at a lot of the air-cooled generation, they'll get rebuilds before the 100,000 miles and stuff, and I don't know, it's a whole weird thing, but that's a weird market to peruse. But anyway, we should talk about Jeremy's comparison to talk about the variants of the 911 line, which I thought was an odd departure for usually an otherwise fairly PC show.
Let's go ahead and don our not very happy with Top Gear caps on this one.
Yeah.
It was pure objectification, but they compared, I guess, the turbo, the C4S, and just C4. The regular
Carrera 4, yeah.
C4. They compared them to some bikini-clad models with various cup sizes.
Exactly. It was, that is as simple as it comes. They literally made the joke it was more than enough of a handful. That's a boob grab joke.
That's a boob grab joke. That's quite uncouth.
Yeah.
That would be nowhere close to flying, not even 10 years, 5 years after that. But apparently you get away with that on the BBC in 2003. But
we'll see what ramifications come. But I saw that when I was watching the episode, and I did not remember that. And I had a little jaw drop moment where I was like, wow, that is a bold one.
Yeah, well, I guess in Series 1, they had gotten a complaint, or were they complaining about car shows and how car shows were just cars surrounded by bikini-clad women, and so they had bikini-clad women surrounding all the cars they were talking about that episode.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So were they going out? Were they actually going out and making a statement on that one? I don't think so. With this addition to the Top Gear history books, I think they were trying to keep the bikini-clad women in the car shows. I'm not sure.
Yep. It was an interesting choice, but I was like, okay, I guess this is your blokishness episode. Let's roll with it.
Eesh.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, have you ever built a car in your kitchen?
I cannot say that I have.
So, I think it was last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago that they called for, it sounded like they had called previously for the biggest car bore, so the boring car guy that you've ever met.
Yeah, something like that.
And they got a tip off to this guy. His name is Robert Lim. He owns a Ford Sierra. Okay, normal thing.
Yeah.
They walked around his house and they said, here's the house, here's the kitchen, here's the cupboards, and here's the car. And he was apparently building what he called a drag racer, in his kitchen.
/ hill climb car / it was none of these, it wasn't a good set of crossovers. It was
no.
A drag car. It's a drag car.
Yeah, a drag racer and a hill climb car really aren't going to be
different
the same
cars. Thing. They showed it's because at the end it didn't have front wheels for reasons, but in the beginning it did, and they were wide tires, which makes me think that's a hill climb car. It's not a drag car. If it was a drag car, I'd have little skinny pizza cutters in the front.
I have to say, the frame that it was built on, I hope that wasn't its final frame, because it was all box steel, and there was overhangs, like all of the weight. Like, are you building a race car? Or are you just building like a car? Like, are you just giving it a shot? Are you just giving it? I'll give it a go.
Great, yeah.
No, it didn't look that good. But anyway, Mr. Lim had built this car in his kitchen, and I guess got too into it to realize that the car was now bigger than any exit of his kitchen. Though, you know what this made me think of, and I don't watch it very much, but every once in a while I'll catch like a CSI. No. A
NCIS?
Yeah, I catch an NCIS like on a flight or something, and that dude's always building his boat in his basement. And there's always like someone always comments, "What are you going to do with this thing? It's a boat in your basement. How are you going to get it out?" That's what it made me think of. Is what are you doing? He's like, "I just build the boat to have something to do." And it's like, no, this guy actually wants to use the car, so he cut his house open.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. I vaguely remember the like building in the kitchen. I did not remember them knocking that wall out and actually getting it out. I remember it like ending like, well, we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean,
that's not what happened.
Here's the issue I have is you got all the stuff in there, right? You got the tires in there, and you got the engine block in there, and then you got all the tube steel in there. Could you not just take everything off? Yeah, like the engine and the tires and whatever, and then like turn the tube, the frame on its side. Have you built it?
Looking at the state it was in, that looked like a legitimate option to me.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Or at the very least, take the window out and don't knock down the GD wall.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure how authentic this was, Jeff.
I don't know. Well, he apparently got divorced at some point in this, or his wife left because she did fit through the door. And I was like, that's a dark joke. Yeah, it was the whole thing. I was like, I mean, I am building a car and it's cold out and I have a slightly heated shop and I would not mind at all being able to build it in the kitchen. But dude, no, I don't think that happens in the real world.
No, I don't think it happens in the real world. So that was a waste of all our times. Let's move on, Jeff.
Yeah, Anne Robinson, she is the weakest link.
Yep, so she does more than the weakest link in the UK.
Yeah, she's way bigger in the UK.
She is, I guess they call her a presenter and a journalist. The Weakest Link is a British show. And then it came over here, and unlike most UK to US transitions, she stayed on. And I guess that was probably a good call, because she was the only reason you would ever watch that show.
Yeah.
So they kept the magic with that one. But it
didn't last long.
No, it wasn't very long.
02 to 03. It probably would have finished, but at this point it would have been done.
Yes, but I think it went on for a while in the UK.
It did, yeah. It was a long running show in the UK. It just did not particularly translate.
Yeah, and she did a lot of other stuff. She was the hostess of one of the presenters, I guess, on the long running British series Watchdog from 93 to 2001, and then also from 2009 to 2015. So like a long time.
Yeah, interesting little break in there.
Well, the little break I think was Weakest Link, where she ran from 2000 to 2012.
All right, fair enough.
There you go. So she was a fun lady. She was giving Clarkson all sorts of crap,
which I appreciate.
That was good. He was trying to make fun of her and her husband for owning the non-AMG model of his SL55 AMG that he owns.
Yeah, she kept calling her husband Penrose. And he has the SL500. Yeah, his name is John Penrose, but yeah.
His last name is Penrose.
Yeah, they kept like flashing to him, and I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. And unsurprisingly, they divorced in 07.
Not too surprising. I mean, they were married for 27 years.
Yeah, but I think that this must be one of the final straws. It was like, I'm sick of you making fun of me on TV.
Not on Top Gear. Anywhere else, but not on Top Gear.
It's a manly episode, damn it.
Yeah. They had the boobs on earlier. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was a fun interview. You should check it out if you want. They didn't talk anything else about any other cars that they have, right?
No, they talked about the like how to the proper car to pull a lady, to attract a female. And they went through some pictures of cars in the parking lot, which I thought was interesting. Yes. They started with, and this was annoying because I was like, the Evo by itself, it's not a tame looking car, but like in silver or something, it's not crazy. And they got a yellow one.
Bright yellow.
Guess what? Yellow cars are irritating.
Everyone hates them.
Yeah.
My uncle used to have I thought about this in our worst cars, 5 worst cars ever. He used to have a yellow Isuzu Vehicross.
Oh, I love the Vehicross.
It was bright yellow. It was the most obnoxious thing in the world.
Oh, what a weirdo car.
His Esprit was also yellow, interestingly enough.
All right. The next one was the Audi TT, which was the only one she like approved of. I was like, no, come on. The current TT I like, and those TTs are okay, but I mean, we have our own soured opinion of the TT for reasons, but
yeah.
And then the Miata, which she was immediately like, it's not even what she said. I think it's not a hairdresser's car, it's a hairdresser's secretary's car.
Yeah. She's going right in.
Harsh. I've owned 2.
She's not in any of the waves of feminism.
No. And then a Jeep Wrangler, which I think she was kind of middle of the road on the Jeep. And okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Yep.
That's a wide assemblage of cars that you had out there.
I can appreciate it. Well, I like the Jeep was kind of the outlier, but they were all like, yeah, these are cars that guys would drive.
Yeah, I'd agree. She did a 157. Not very good. Pretty slow.
Yep.
She wanted to beat Boris Johnson. She did not.
She did not. Third slowest? Second slowest? She was well ahead of Harry Enfield.
Do we count Harry Enfield? He must have gone on a different track. I'm not sure.
I think he took a gas stop.
Yeah, I think she might be the third slowest.
Okay, that sounds right. There was one more. There was like a wet one or something, but.
Speaking of small convertibles that guys don't want to drive, Jeff, let's talk about the news.
Okay. We can't have convertibles, it sounds like.
Apparently, a convertible is not a manly car, and Really? Is that the perception?
I don't know. Like, I mean, there's many convertibles that I would not really care to drive, like a Z3 or something. But, God, I saw a guy, like, last week in the, like, 20s or 30s, and he was in, I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was a Vet or something like that. But he had the top down, and I was like, I can totally appreciate that. Like, just crank the heater and just top down if it's not snowing. Go for it.
It's not raining, it's not snowing, tops down, don't care.
Yep.
Go fast enough to keep the cold air over me.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really find convertibles that fun. Like I've driven in a few. They've always been like crappy ones, like Sebring convertibles and stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you start getting into if a cool car is a convertible, then it's still cool, like a Gallardo. Like a Spider Gallardo? Is it Gallardo or Gallardo?
It's totally Gallardo. Or a 918 Spider, that's a convertible.
Yes, those are cool cars, and they're also cool as convertibles. Cool. But
anyway,
like a Sebring convertible or a VW Bug convertible, yeah, I wouldn't be seen in one of those if it was a hardtop or convertible. It doesn't matter. They're both crap. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really follow along with the manly, not manly car. I think
they're over generalizing because like there's plenty, as you said, like there's a lot of the smaller convertibles especially that have their implications. And I got as a Miata driver, I got plenty of crap for driving a Miata, which is a small convertible. But God, they're fun.
Yeah, they're also very good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I'll take a little guff if I can drive an entertaining car.
Yeah, that's true. You can handle a little guff.
Yeah, a little guff.
It's because you're a man.
Because I'm a bloke. Other interesting thing in there, they were talking about the 48-hour Vectra test drive, which Hammond gave out the... It was nice. They delivered the car to you, the new Vauxhall Vectra, and let you have it for 48 hours, and then took it back. And he was like, it's great if you just need to, go to the store or go to your mom's house or something.
Rob a bank.
Yeah, exactly. He gave out that phone number 4 times, and by the third one, I was like, maybe I should try to call this to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was an American number, I might give it a shot.
Yeah, be like, can I have a car tomorrow?
Yeah. I remember them doing that 24-hour/48-hour test drive. I mean, they wouldn't, in America, they'd never deliver it to you. You'd have to go to them. But
yeah,
you could always, I feel like that was an indicator that they weren't doing well. Like,
yes.
They will literally do anything to get you to buy a car. Like, yeah, just take it. What, a couple weeks? Whatever. I don't know. Just give us some money or so, please. Just
try not to crash it. You crash, you buy. Maybe. We crash, release. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think this is a sign maybe of the GM, because I remember those always being GM cars doing that too. The long, and Vauxhall is GM. So
yep.
I think they are starting to feel a little pinch. It obviously got the worst during the 08, 09 financial crisis. But
that was probably the start of maybe some of the pain.
Yeah. They're just trying it out, their recovery strategy.
And that's about all I got for the news. Yeah, let's talk about a Triumph. Let's talk about an old Triumph.
Let's talk about apparently the only car that James May could think of that's a convertible and that a man could drive, which is the Triumph TR6.
But this is quite honestly the biggest load of limp-wristed twaddle I've ever heard in all my 5 weeks in television. These two are not men, okay? This one, Richard Hammond, every morning sticks his head in a bucket of hair products. Right? He's got a dog, but it's a poodle. And I don't know what you're laughing about, Clarkson, because you won't drink brown beer. And this is the man that says flatulence, oh, it's not funny, when clearly it is, isn't it? I am actually the only proper bloke on this programme, OK? I live in a tumble-down house full of old motorbikes. And I think a bloke can drive a convertible, but has to be the right one.
Did you grab a year on this one?
I didn't. I don't know if he had one, but it was, I'm guessing, like, the TR6 would have probably been late 70s, early 80s. It was red.
68. It was red. 68 to 76.
Okay. Not a bad-looking car, and James May was on uppers or something because he was so excited.
He was so chipper, dude. He was just, it's a great car.
Good job they didn't give it to a Frenchman, eh? We'd all have handbags by now. Well, we'll have no handbaggery here, thank you. You can't mince around with this like you do in a small hatchback. What a road. What a car. What a day.
And he was driving in the rain, too, which also, like, given the condition of that car that it had been restored, I was like, I don't know if the owner of this is going to appreciate this.
It had that cool, like, cover everything except for the driver area top on
the
it.
The tonneau? Yeah, that tonneau, those are awesome.
Yeah, I think that the Triumph, specifically this TR6, is a very well-proportioned car. I like the long boot. I like the flat line on the trunk here. Interesting, I'm looking at this car now. I didn't notice it before. It's got one of the middle of the car fuel filler caps.
Oh, that's good and annoying.
You gotta lay the thing on your paint job. It's not very good.
Yeah,
but it's a very simple car, and I think when you get down to these small little roadster type cars, that'll always do you well.
Yeah, under the hood, it was super clean. I love that straight six too. Yeah, that was a great looking motor, great looking engine bay. Whoever did that restoration did a great job.
Yeah, I think I might actually be looking at that car because it looks very, very familiar to me on the Wikipedia page for the TR6. It's red.
That makes sense.
Red, the engine bay looks very similar. But yeah, it's a great looking car. Looks like a lot of fun. I actually had a friend of mine in high school who drove one of these. This was his daily driver in Colorado.
So by daily, you mean like the days that it decided to work, right?
As far as I could tell, he drove it every day. I don't know.
Hey, all right.
He's
a good mechanic.
I didn't take that much stock. I didn't watch him that long, but it was a left-hand drive, so it was an American.
Okay.
But this is the kind of guy. He was like a state champion wrestler, like all 4 years. Great wrestler, and he wore a bow tie all the time. So
nice.
This is the kind of guy that drove a TR6.
That drove a Triumph. Yeah.
Yeah. Did
he drive it top down in the rain?
I don't think he drove it top down in the rain. No.
Okay.
Now he was a little guy though. I always looked at it and thought I wouldn't fit into it. But he was one of the lighter weight like wrestling guys. But it was a good looking car then. His was the classic Triumph
BRG.
green.
Yeah, the British racing green. Oh,
yep.
That's so pretty.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good color.
Yeah. I've run into like 2 of these, and I think one was in a junkyard. So, yeah.
Never did get to drive it though.
It seems like the convertible is super beneficial for tall people because you don't have a height limitation.
Reminds me of that classic car race that they went on where much later that Clarkson gets a midget.
Yeah.
It's actually a Triumph something else, but it's made in the same company made in the same factory as a midget, and he sits well above the windscreen while sitting in it,
looking over the frame. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, really not that much to say about this. I have in all caps very manly because I think James May shouted that at me during the review.
I wrote man, etc.
So it wasn't that great of a review, but it's a fun little car.
Yeah. It's funny. So like this will be May's 5th episode, and looking back, he had the Bentley T2, in the first episode. He's got a bunch of like old cars. He appears to, I guess, like old cars. I mean, I understand that he's James May once you get to know him better, but he gets like the old used car vibe thing.
I'm surprised he didn't do the Jaguar Mark II last episode.
I know, right? Yeah, and the Rover P5. Hammond did both of those.
Interesting. He's a Rover P5 kind of guy.
He definitely is. So how about that challenge? What a thing. That was the point at which my wife came in and she was like, "What the hell are they doing?" And I was like, you don't want to know.
I can't explain. I cannot explain. So the challenge was which is faster. Yep.
Yeah.
A fully stocked, fully ready, well-practiced rally car pit crew.
Yeah, the Ford rally team.
Swapping out the entire suspension and drivetrain except for the engine on a rally car. Or the Pirelli girls getting ready for a night out who don't know that they're being timed.
Yeah.
Whereas the pit crew, even though they don't know they're being timed, they have to do it at a certain speed no matter what because they're practicing.
They're exactly. I started this out by like they showed the girls and they were just like outside a house sitting on a curb drinking.
Yep.
Just what?
Just drinking in the street.
We're not ready to go inside yet.
This is our drinking curb. We'll be inside soon.
We'll finish these bottles.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous challenge.
So ridiculous.
But
it wasn't even a challenge because they didn't time the girls. They just left.
Yeah. How long did it take for the girls? I don't know. We just left.
We got bored.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Your car guy is not watching car stuff. I mean, they're attractive ladies, but
Pirelli girls. I guess this is car guy for supermodels you can get.
Yeah. It was. The car 27 minutes, which is wow fast.
Have you ever seen an engine rebuild, like a timed engine rebuild challenge?
An engine rebuild?
Yeah.
No.
This is what reminded me of. Like, it reminded me of the pit crews for like the Top Fuel and Funny Car Drag Racers. Have you ever seen them tear down an engine?
No.
They rebuild the whole engine in between every single drag run.
I know they do. Oh, between run. I thought it was
between runs.
Okay.
Yes, they rebuild the entire thing. All new piston rings. I think the pistons are completely gone. They don't run oil. There's no oil in Top Fuel Drag Racers.
That's insane.
Because there's so much fuel that the fuel acts as a lubricant. There is oil. Is there oil? There has to be oil. I don't know. There has to be oil. They don't run coolant in the Top Fuel Drag Racers because there's so much fuel that it acts as a coolant, and the heat is sucked into the fuel, vaporizing it while it's being exploded. But anyway, they completely tear down and rebuild the Top Fuel Drag Racers and Funny Car Drag Racers here in the States every run, and it gets you into this YouTube hole of engine rebuild competitions. Have you ever seen one of these?
No, because that sounds so terrible.
Oh my god, that's so cool. You should check it out. I remember seeing it late night. I was like high school or something. Like late night, summer, my sleeping schedule's all awesome. Like on Speed TV, the Speed channel. Yeah. And it was like an engine rebuild competition. And these guys are rebuilding like a small block Chevy. Mm-hmm. They start with a block and a bunch of parts, and they have to build it, torque everything correctly, and run it for 60 seconds. And then the entire engine gets torn down by judges to check all of the torques. And then they're assessed penalties. And they do it in like 22 minutes.
That is insane.
Like 26 minutes or something like that. Like, it's pretty cool to see, but I got down after watching this full suspension thing. It reminded me of the the drag racing guys. And I got into a long YouTube bottomless pit of Top Fuel cars pulling into the pits and like 6 guys just jumping on it,
going crazy.
And like within like 6 minutes, they're pulling out pistons.
Wow!
Like legitimately not sped up. Like 6 minutes, they're like dropping all 8 pistons and rebuilding like all of a sudden you just look and you watch, there's a bunch of guys like turning wrenches and stuff and like moving things around, and all of a sudden the entire supercharger blower comes off the top. You're like, what?
What just happened?
Was that connected with bubble gum? Like, where did the bolts come from? Yeah, it's amazing. So that's what it reminded me of. That's way more entertaining. Go watch that after you listen to this podcast.
I did like the engineering side, or the rally side, like watching them do like suspension and stuff, because I've done suspension jobs, I've done brake jobs. I know like how long they take me, and I'm like, you did all that in like the time it takes me to like figure out which bolts to loosen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I now I'm going to look up rally car suspension swaps.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Just like the drag racing engine swaps. It's pretty cool. But yeah, every run.
Wow.
I wonder if they replace the suspension in those things, like, or at least I'm sure they at least changed the suspension properties for each stage in a rally.
Oh yeah,
given what's
based
coming
on
up.
the surface and the
I wonder if they have to like completely disassemble it sometimes because they run like 3 or 4 stages per day in the rally championships.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is the same thing where they just like, all right, once you're done with your stage, bring it into the pits, and they just completely rebuild the whole thing in 30 minutes.
Swap out spring rates, and
that's crazy.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
So challenge that was not. It was just like, look at pretty ladies and look at car. Continue.
It's pretty much this episode in a nutshell.
There you go. All right, to round this out, just love this car. Renault Clio V6.
It's a cool car. It's not a bad looking thing.
No.
But the whole, like, it's like a hot hatch, but like to the extreme, to the point where they completely change everything about how the car actually functions, except for the steering.
Yeah.
Because
they changed that. They ruin it. But anyway, we'll get to that.
But like, I bet the car's steering is ruined because of the weight distribution has changed, but like they move the whole engine, everything to the back. And like it's like inside the car.
Yeah.
Like there's like just some plastic covers over what I presume is
top of it.
Yeah, like an engine bay. It's crazy. But yeah, this is a cool car.
So there are a few cars that like in my brain stick out as like the Top Gear cars. Like I remember when James May like took the Veyron to top speed, and definitely the Bowler Wildcat, which we've already seen, and this is one of them. The Clio V6 is when I was like, they put a engine in the back of a hatchback. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's totally ridiculous. It turns into a 2-seater, but yeah, this is actually the phase 2. They made 2 versions of this. This is a slight facelift, and apparently it actually is a lot better than the phase 1 and a little faster.
Yeah.
But not particularly fuel efficient. Averages about 20 miles per gallon, which, that makes sense. A very low production quantity. It's kind of a limited, it's borderline like exotic quantities. But 155 miles an hour in a little hatchback, that's a fast car.
It is a fast car, and it's... All right, so it's rear-wheel drive, so you don't have any of the torque steer issues that you normally get out of these super powerful hot hatches.
Yeah, it solves that. I hear it's pretty weight biased to the rear. It's 60-40 rear front. And that is, if you recall, they tend to spin it a lot in some of the in a lot of the video, and that's why, because it's twitchy, and it's basically like you have to go in and commit. Like if you lift in the corner, it'll spin on you.
Yeah. I wonder if this is acts the same way that Jeremy was explaining that the 911 acts, with all of the weight over the rear end and none of the 50 years of experience bringing the weight distribution back to 50-50 and modifying the suspension and all that sort of stuff and the properties. Because certainly with a low production quality and just taking a regular Clio and slamming a V6 in the back, they didn't do a ton of R&D on getting this thing to actually perform very well.
Yeah. Yeah,
so it's like a crappy 911.
Yeah. It's but cheap, man. What would you say, 27,000?
27,000 pounds. That's so cheap.
Yeah. It's not super powerful, but it is light, and it is it seems like I really would love a chance to drive one.
Mm-hmm. It's a 3-liter V6 in essentially a super mini. The Renault Clio is a small car. Yeah, I mean they said a few bad things about it. It wasn't all positive. Jeremy really liked it. He
did.
even
I
said
did
if
like
he had-
the so they talked turning circle, and this has always been the Achilles heel of this, and I think it actually got better with this generation, but it was still bad. So to give you some numbers, looking at the kind of the current stock of compact, subcompact cars, a typical, like a Ford Fiesta right now is about a 34.4 feet turning circle being diameter. This one had a 43-foot circle. So almost, 9 feet more.
30% more.
Yeah. Just
That's crazy. It's worse than a Range Rover, like they said, yeah.
Yeah, they showed it, yeah. I was trying to find a good reason for it. And because it doesn't, I mean, you're not like running into engine bay with the wheel arches. So my best guess, because I could not honestly find a great answer, is the wide tires up front because of the extra power that they had to accommodate. And I don't think they changed the front geometry much. So with those wide tires, they just can't turn it as tight of an angle.
Yeah. They also said that it out-accelerates the Porsche C4S, which is crazy. I don't know what particular metric they said. They just said out-accelerates.
Yeah.
It does 0 to 60 in 5.9, which is pretty good.
That is moving.
I don't remember what the C4S was, but
I don't think we got an... Oh, well, see, they said 5.1 on that, so I don't know. I don't know what their metric was, but I do recall that stat of out-acceleration.
It'll do 155 miles an hour and out-accelerate the Porsche C4S that we looked at earlier.
they definitely said 5.1. So yeah, I wonder if out-acceleration it's faster from 40 to 100 or something like that.
Faster
Whatever.
from 0 to 10.
Yeah, whatever stat they used. But they did, Jeff, put it around the track,
Yes, they did.
as we like to say. So it was, I'm going to go with wet on this one. Yep.
Okay, I'll give you that.
It was not raining when they did it.
No, but definitely wet, above damp.
It did a 136.2, which is not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And it is only 27,000 pounds, which is great. But, Jeff, what is your desirability rating for this car?
8.
8? Oh, way up there.
I love it. It's not usable, like it's not functional or practical, but like, oh god, I totally drive one. I daily one of these.
Your desirability of this is greater than that of the Porsche 911 Turbo.
Because of those ugly ass headlights.
Oh, it's the headlights. Always the headlights.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a rarity that comes with this, and there's like, I like the hatchbacks, and this thing just it is like the quintessential like monster hatch.
Yeah. I think this is too much of a science project. I think it's very cool, and that intrigues me, all of the things they did, but I don't think they did it very good. I'm doing a 6.
All right, that's still not terrible. I think it's gonna be good.
It is a 104.4, putting it 10th on the Top Gear power rankings.
Top 10.
It is, top 10. It is just ahead of the Lotus Elise 1.8. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And just behind the BMW M3. Okay.
All right.
All right, that's probably right where about it fits, I would say.
Yeah, I will buy.
It wasn't nearly as fast as those. Well, I guess with the time reduction, and it is quite a bit cheaper. Yeah, I would say that probably is right in the middle.
Yeah,
it is just barely ahead and just barely behind. Those are very bunched up. Less than a point for both of those.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Clarkson, we said that he really liked it. Clarkson said that if he had it's interesting from last episode, they had the top 10 greatest cars. Very briefly, that's not actually in the episode. Clarkson said that he would put this in his top 10 best cars. Like his Clarkson's top 10.
His dream garage. Yeah. That's where I was really hoping, and I'm not sure if it does come up, if they would actually flesh that out a little more and have and talk through their top 10 dream garage. I don't see it on our later in this season, but we'll see.
That sounds like something we should do for next episode.
Yeah, I think it's gonna have to come at some point.
All right, we got a couple weeks. Maybe we might have to do top 10 dream garage. Maybe can we limit it to 5? Maybe it's a little quicker.
I know 10's hard, right?
You start getting into a lot of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, I could take that or this or that.
Yeah, you get a lot of the tweeners. So Evo, STI, and whatnot. Anyway, those are next episode.
Those are not in my dream garage.
I understand.
All right. Well, that's it, huh?
I think that wraps it up.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. If you enjoyed it, please think about subscribing and telling your friends and your mates. Also, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/topgearrearview. We like to post a lot of cool car stuff, as well as our top 10 and where the cars came in this week's Top Gear Rearview Power Rankings.
Yeah, and if you have a chance, it really helps us if you put up a rating or a review on iTunes. That helps us kind of stay high in the ratings there, and just helps kind of spread the word a little more. If you have any questions or feedback, we are available at topgearrearview@gmail.com. And I think that about wraps it up. So on that note, we will talk to you guys on episode 7. That's the wrong one. It's episode 6.
Just, you know what? I'm going to leave that in.
All right, fair enough.
All right.